Hello, Dr. Andres here again. Just a few remarks on how we can use fasting both to identify and to treat allergies. Allergies is a huge problem in the world today, particularly in the Western world with all our pollutants, genetically modified seeds and pollen in the air, and a lot of other things that tend to trigger allergies. Add to that, of course, the Western world's preoccupation with medicine, where the symptoms of allergy continually get suppressed with antihistamines and steroids, other drugs, so that the natural development of resistance is often inhibited. Firstly, how do we know when we're allergic to something? Well, we are exposed to a huge variety of different chemicals in our environment, both externally and internally. Of course, what goes into the body makes most intimate contact with the body, and therefore food and drink is more likely to be causing or related to allergies. How do we determine what we're allergic to? One of the ways is to, number one, choose which foods and or drink you'd like to test. There's a few blood tests available that can identify certain obvious allergens, but by far not everything. So, if you suspect you're allergic to something, the following is a technique of determining yes or no, and in a way, to what extent. Number one, make sure that you are exposed to that food or drink for a reasonable period of time in reasonable volumes, so as to actually activate the allergic response in your body, should it be there. Then, for at least a 3-week period, totally and utterly avoid that substance. For example, if it's dairy you want to test, don't even have a cup of tea with a drop of milk in it. Don't even have a biscuit that might have been made in a factory where there's milk. Make sure that there's absolutely no exposure whatsoever, so that after about 3 weeks, which is sometimes how long it takes your body to process what you've already been exposed to, after those 3 weeks, you then do a day of fasting, at least 1 day of fasting, in order to remove the last remnants of potential allergic response from your body. Then you test the food by having a single meal consisting of a single substance, namely the food you want to test. The entire meal must consist of only the thing you wish to test. And the meal must consist of a certain weight of the substance you wish to test. So look up what it consists of. Milk, for example, see how much water is there, and subtract that so that you have a certain dry weight of the food you're going to expose yourself to. Now, be calm and peaceful and take your pulse rate. Often you can do a pulse rate with little blood pressure meters like this, which fits around your wrist to measure both your pulse rate and your blood pressure. Do that in the resting state. Then expose your body to a given weight of the food you want to test. Be peaceful and quiet, and half an hour later, count your pulse rate and or your blood pressure and pulse rate again. Once you've done this for a number of different foods, remember each time when you want to test the food, avoid it for 3 weeks and have a fasting day beforehand to remove the last vestiges of reaction. Then expose yourself to the food and do this test. Once you've done a few of them, you can look at the different responses and identify the foods with the most prominent increase in pulse rate, or in what we call pulse pressure. That's the difference between systolic and diastolic blood pressure, and or sometimes even a drop in blood pressure, which comes from the blood vessels opening up. Once you've identified these foods, it's not necessarily essential for you to totally cut them out, but you need to know which they are. Then you can prepare your body for the occasional exposure. Say you're in a social situation, or you simply crave something, or you want to experience a taste, or you want variety, which after all is the spice of life. Then, after a fasting day, we know that the intestine is nicely closed up. So I could demonstrate. Intestine consists of cells closely linked together. If they get inflamed, the cells swell up and little gaps appear between them through which proteins can penetrate into your bloodstream. Proteins usually the carrier of allergic reaction. So once you fast it for a day or two, the cells in the intestine should be closed up and the allergen should then not be absorbed, and you may often safely eat it or drink it or get it in another way. And only after having been exposed for a few days does the cells start swelling up as a reaction, and as they swell up, they leave little gaps in between through which the protein can then reach the blood and make you sick. Important to remember always, on a fasting day, your gut has an opportunity to repair itself. When you're exposed to an allergen, blood vessels dilate, they open up. That's a typical reaction to histamine, and that causes your blood pressure to drop and your pulse rate to increase. If you fast regularly, you may be able to tolerate allergens quite well, even if you're quite allergic to them, and that may give you a little bit of more variety, which, after all, is the spice of life.